tensions remain high in Tunisia. Protesters have taken to the streets demanding the ruling party to give up power. Now that the dictator has been ousted, there are hopes for better times. A Tunisian TV channel has resumed broadcasting the Adhan call to daily prayers. Tunisia has been in a state of emergency since President Zain al-Abidine Ben Ali fled on Friday. Ben Ali, who's been in power for 23 years, fled to Saudi Arabia after a month of protests across the country. It all started in mid-December when following Tunisia's example, protests against dictatorship are spreading throughout the Arab world. 4 Algerians and a Mauritanian have set themselves on fire over the last week. A restaurant owner has also torched himself, and an unemployed man set himself on fire and later died. Subsequently, thousands of Tunisians decided that it was time to show how angry they are about corruption and lack of civil and religious freedoms. Ben Ali restricted the wearing of headscarves in government offices and discouraged women from wearing them in public. There were also frequent reports that police harassed or detained men with beards because of their Islamic appearance in front of the parliament building in Cairo. There have been anti-government protests in Jordan, Oman, and Yemen.
We have a message to all oppressors. Leave before you are forced to leave. Make concessions to the people before you have to offer it to them during your escape. Zain al-Abidine made a lot of concessions, but then time ran out.
Anger and frustration is energizing opposition groups across the Arab world, a world where autocratic regimes have remained in power for decades.
In fact, as you know it and everybody know it very well, the reaction never comes from a leader unless there is something in the street happening and taking a place. And when this event in the street shakes the system, then the leader will react. Now, if we want to see the map of the Arab world and the reaction, you can notice the reaction what happened, for example, in Damascus when they issued the support for poor people with $250 million per year. In Jordan, they are talking about keeping the price of the main goods as it is. So here comes the reaction of the system.
It's not achieved yet, but clearly there are many people who want one and are willing to fight and even die for one. I think what we've seen here is as was described earlier, a kind of an earthquake or a human quake in Tunisia, people challenging the government, forcing the president to leave. But the situation is by no means stable. The new government has many members of the old government still in it. That's unacceptable to the protesters. The United States has really refused to take a courageous stand here, supporting the protesters. We can't take sides, is what the Obama administration is saying, unbelievably enough. And as a consequence, I think this is still shaking itself out, but it certainly is sort of a fuse that is lighting resistance and protest in other countries again, and other countries as well, against corruption, lack of democracy, lack of respect for the people. Understood what my colleague in Beirut was saying. He's saying that the leaders there in the region don't really respond unless they're forced to by pressure from the Arab street, from protest and the like. Otherwise, they would like to avoid responding, and that's what we've seen. But I think what's interesting in this situation is that some Tunis leaks, as the website there is called, as the people get more and more information coming to them from international broadcast outlets, I think their anger becomes stoked. And when they see their government acting the way it has, the pressure for change continues to build. And I think it will continue to build because the new government that's just coming into place there has a lot of members of the old government in it. It's not really responsive to the demands. This change is not responsive to the demands of the people. And so I think we're going to see more protest, not only there, but in other countries where similar problems prevail. But in other countries where similar problems prevail.
They told me that there's a person who burned himself today, and yesterday we faced the same situation there in Algeria. So I think that this movement of protests could be separate in many countries, because you know that the problems that Arab societies face now are the same. Otherwise, there is the unemployment, the poverty, and there are a lot of political problems. Let me focus here in the political problems, because you know that the political vacuum in the Arab states are huge. So in these prospects, I think that the absence of the opposition and the absence of the opposition, the opposition parties in these countries could lead to a lot of problems in case of, for example, if the same scenario who has occurred in Tunisia could be repeated in another Arab countries. So I think that there are two or more of 4 Arab countries are really threatened by this kind of unrest.
Now, if you wanted to see what we mean by opposition in the Arab world, if it exists or not, you can take Lebanon as an example. The opposition is part of the authority. In Jordan, what is the opposition in the meaning of the opposition? And when there is an opposition in the Arab world, we may ask a very simple question. What is the plan of the opposition? What is their project? So in this case, here Tunisia is not it was not a matter of an opposition that moved the street. No, more than one factor played a role, and major roles, in moving these streets from the political system to the economical and to the social. All of this moved the streets to explode.
Okay, Danny Schechter, go ahead.
If I can jump in. You know, I agree with his analysis, absolutely. Every country is different, but at the same time we have global forces here which we've never really had before to the same degree. We have globalization economically, neoliberalism,
I agree
in many of these countries that makes similarities. Also, we have global media that we didn't have before. We have international satellite broadcasters like Al Jazeera, like Press TV, who are seen by people in countries that are not the country that originates the broadcast. We have social media, Facebook, et cetera, et cetera.
I agree with you.
So all of this is contributing to broadening this debate in a way that the leaders no longer can control everything. They'd like to control it. They like to put the genie back in the bottle. They like to tell everybody to go home, you know, but they're not really successful in doing it because there are so many other sources of information that are coming in and reinforcing for, you know, calling for internet freedom. But, you know, they want to control the process of change. They don't want to really allow local people to direct the change. They don't like democracy from the bottom up. They like to impose democracy from the top down.
Okay.
So, you know, they can't really contain it.
Yes, I agree with our friends in the States about the globalization, and I agree with all the tools of globalization from technological revolution till now, and mainly now we are talking about the internet and its revolution. But here also we have to be very careful about how this revolution is used, because let's see, it helped in spreading the information and letting people to be aware and more aware of what's going on in other places of the world. But let's again see on the other side what is the percentage of the people who are seeing or have the abilities. Mainly here I'm talking about the Arab world and mainly about the poor people. What is the percentage of those people who have the access to the internet due to their poverty?
Good point.
And you know, for example, in Lebanon, the percentage of poverty is 30%, and this is not an easy number to talk about. The unemployment is 28%. And so all of this, okay, I agree with the importance of globalization and its technology in the region and how to move the masses. But this is a clear evidence also that what happened in Tunisia, globalization, here again, I insist when I say globalization here, I'm talking about the technology, according to our friend. Sure, this is one part of it. Media played a role, the internet and etc. And this shows also that the domination of globalization is started to be weaker and weaker in the region. They started to use globalization in the meaning of technology against the dictatorships who are ruling the Arab world.
Okay.
Maybe it's a kind of awareness for the most of Arab countries to reform their systems, their political systems, and to give a lot of power for the party of the opposition. You know, this, given that you are talking about globalization, I want to mention that the people who took the street in Tunisia, I think that they are not really educated. So the problem is always the problem of poverty and the problem of unemployment. So I think that this is the issue. When we have political parties who defend the interest of these people, I think that the movement and the character of this movement could be more political than social. So in this prospect, I think that what the other Arab regions should do to deal with this kind of movements is, first of all, to have their political system reformed and to have their social system also reformed.
I think the U.S. is reacting, not acting. It's trying to stay on top of the situation when, in fact, it helped create the situation by supporting the Tunisian government for so long, not criticizing the Tunisian government. You know, Robert Fisk, writing out of Beirut, has been very, critical, if you will. He's afraid that because there's a lack of leadership, or apparently a lack of leadership in Tunisia, this whole thing could fizzle out. Somebody wrote to me from Iran and said what's missing is an Ayatollah like Khomeini, to provide leadership to the people. I mean, this is the situation there is still very volatile, and I don't think we can clearly see what the trends are. Will it lead to more Islamic movements? Will it reinforce secular movements? We don't really know yet, but we do know that the people are speaking, and they're speaking loudly.